on, y'all? We're back again this week with a great episode. A lot of controversy in college football. So, FSU got screwed. Florida State, they get screwed out of the playoff. And, I'll talk a little bit about whether I think it was deserved or not. But thank you all for tuning in. Let's get straight into it. Conference Championship Week delivered. Obviously, pivotal games all across the board. It was a kind of win and you're in situation, but some of that did not happen. So first we'll go to the Friday night game, the Pac-12 championship. It was number 5 Oregon versus number 3 Washington. This game was awesome. Oregon was a 9.5-point favorite, and Washington got it done 34-31. So going into it, I wish I would have known this. Washington beat Oregon by 3 last year, beat Oregon by 3 in the regular season, and beat Oregon by 3 here. So it's just ironic, 3 straight times winning by 3. Didn't even realize that until after the game I had seen it. But to start the game, this is how you know it was going to go bad for Oregon. We should have just known from them. The first play of the game, Bo Nix throws a pass, hits a ref. Bad start. Can't ask for a much worse start. But yeah, the game was awesome. I mean, back and forth. It just felt like the whole time Washington was going to win that. But it was, what a game. What a Pac-12 championship. What a way to go out. And we had a Geno reference from Michael Penix after the game where he said they wrote us off, but we went right back. So keeping it Seattle. But, yeah, for the game, I mean, Oregon kind of made that little late push at the end. But once the onside was recovered, they panned to Bo Nix to where he had the towel over his head and he was sitting there like emotional, obviously. Man, I felt bad for the guy. Like that was. I've loved Bo Nix over the years. I know there's been Georgia fans want to crucify me for saying that dude is good at football, but I've loved watching him. He's been fun. He was fun to watch at Auburn, and then like a blast to watch for Oregon the past couple years. So his last game will be the bowl game, but yeah, now what a career for that dude. And Bo Nix versus Michael Penix delivered some battles. It was awesome. So yeah, that it was a sad ending for Oregon. For Washington, they just did everything that you needed to do. Like it felt like the whole time Oregon would play off of the receivers and they would just take advantage. Like it felt like Kalen DeBoer was just playing chess, not checkers, just doing the easy stuff, not trying to take any big shots, and then that's kind of what made the game go the way it did. So Washington gets it done. Now Washington is 3-0 all time in Pac-12 championships and 13-0, most wins in school history. So what a year for the Huskies. Big 12 championship. This was at noon Saturday. I had Texas big. Texas was a 15.5-point favorite, and I thought that was disrespectful to Texas. And yeah, they covered that. Texas won 49-21. It was 21-7 at the end of the first. It was just like points. The T'Vondre Sweat touchdown was amazing. That was electric. That got me so hyped. That you would have thought I was a Texas fan at that point. I was standing up screaming. T'Vondre Sweat, what a legend. Then he strikes the Heisman pose in the end zone. It was crazy. But Quinn Ewers was lights out. 4 touchdowns in the first half for him. He finished the game with 4 touchdowns, 452 yards, which both. So 452 yards was the record in a Big 12 title game. 4 touchdowns tied the record for touchdowns in a Big 12 title game. So, yeah, it was amazing. He just played lights out. And obviously, Stark talked about it after the game. That game, Quinn Ewers looked untouchable. Like, he looked like if he would have played like that the whole season, it would be Heisman conversations. Like, that was unreal. Just not even just the yards-wise. He just looked so comfortable and did everything right. Like, it was just a little injury scare towards the end of the game for him, but he ended up being fine coming back in. So, Texas, their first year in the Big 12, like once it got moved to the Big 12, they won the title, and their last year in it, they win the title. So they came in with a great exclamation point, and then they leave with a great ending. So shout out to Texas for that one. But Xavier Worthy, this is kind of, I don't think it's as big a deal as what it looked like when it happened. He got hurt late in the game and came back on crutches, and I was like, oh gosh, dude, if they make the playoff, this is going to be tough. But apparently it's not as bad as what I thought it was. I mean, they got like 3 weeks to get through it. So they'll be fine. But, yeah, Xavier Worthy, I mean, that's their number 1 receiver. So definitely got to get him back. But we had Arch Manning get in at one point. Blake Murphy got in. It was awesome. It was a great thing to see. And then Jonathan Brooks at the end, Sarkisian had him, obviously he's out for the year, torn ACL, had him suit up, get on the field just for them to knee it so that he could be in on the last play. So that was an awesome little nudge from Sark. So I loved that one. But Brett Yormark, he's the Big 12 commissioner. He's been notorious for speaking bad a little bit on Texas for leaving to go to the SEC. So he came onto the stage at the end to present the trophy to Texas, and it's just boos from everyone. And he was like, "Oh, it's all good, it's all good." Like he was hurting, trying to figure out what to say. And then they just started SEC chants. So it was a beautiful scene. The Texas faithful showed out. It was awesome. The big one, the SEC championship. This game was outstanding. This game delivered. I couldn't have imagined a better outing. So Georgia was the favorite, obviously. I mean, they'd won 29 straight going into it. Hadn't lost since Alabama beat them in the SEC championship 2 years ago. And Alabama gets it done again. You don't want to play Nick Saban in Atlanta. Like I said last week, since 2008, they're 16-0 in Atlanta. That's a team you don't want to face there. Like this, just Nick Saban's on the other sideline. Like that's terrifying. But it's 2023, and Georgia fans still can't stand Alabama. So we thought it did kind of pass because people think like Georgia fans like hate Florida. I mean, I'm sure there's some that hate Florida the most or something, but like the majority of the Georgia fans that I know can't stand Alabama. That's their one. And yeah, I thought it kind of passed. You know, you win 2 natties. You're in the conversation for taking the throne, and then they come back and they get you again. Nick Saban will not go away. But yeah, this was a very sad game because it was the last SEC on CBS game ever. So I posted it on the TikTok. This was when Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson did their send-off. That's enough to make a grown man cry. That was unreal. That was sad. And it's also the last time we'll have an East versus West SEC championship game, which I think kind of went under the radar. That's kind of crazy. It's been like that for the history of the conference. And then now it will be going to just the top 2 teams, which is like what the Pac-12 does and some of these other conferences do. But yeah, so now it could be East, West, whatever. So yeah, that'll fade away after this year too. But yeah, if you didn't see the Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson final goodbye, go look on our TikTok at Cameron and Cade Podcast. That one's like that. It's just sad. It's sad to see. Like those two, just legends of my childhood. But Alabama now is 5-0 all time versus ranked number 1 teams in the college football playoff rankings. So that's, if you ever are number 1 in the playoff rankings, hopefully you don't line up against Bama because that's just like their thing. They just, if they're ever an underdog, it's over. Like you already lost if you're the favorite. But yeah, this game was awesome. And Jalen Milroe in this game had one of his better passing games that he's had of the season. Like he's definitely not a thrower. But this game kind of like, it was something that Georgia hadn't really seen. Like when Georgia played Auburn, they got it kind of exposed with the little the Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford type thing. And so Jalen Milroe is that on steroids. Jalen Milroe is crazy. So that's kind of just something they hadn't seen. And Jermaine Burton after the game doing the like broken heart to the Georgia fans. Obviously, Georgia transfer from 2 years ago, now at Alabama. Yeah, that's savage. But Jalen Milroe after the game, he said Marty Smith was asking him just these different questions, how he got to where he is now, and he was saying when the world gave up on me, I didn't give up on myself. All this different stuff. It was touching. It's hard to not root for that guy. Like even like I mean I SEC football I can kind of root for anybody, but Jalen Milroe is easy to root for. That dude, I mean, he was benched week 3 of the season against USF. and they nearly lost that. It looked like it couldn't get worse for Alabama. And then he turned into what he is. The team turned into what they are now. And it's just been a crazy ride. And I'm here for it. It's been awesome up to this point. The Big Ten Championship. Not a lot to say about this game. This is so stupid. Like I mentioned, the SEC is going from East-West to just the top two. That's exactly what the Big Ten needs to do. And I hope they're doing that next year. I'm assuming they will. But this is outrageous. Why do these teams play? The last 5 years, the West team has been pointless. Last year was Purdue. I don't remember who it was 2 years ago, but Iowa has no business being on the field with Michigan. They got destroyed by Penn State, who Michigan beat on their home field. I predicted Michigan 38-10. Michigan won 26-0, so the points were not there for Iowa. It was bad. Iowa finished this season with 1,000 more punt yards than they did yards from scrimmage. It's insane. It's insane how bad they are on offense. But yeah, that's really about it. I'll talk a little bit about Michigan as we get to the playoff talk. But yeah, I just couldn't have cared less about that game. I'm just tired of the East-West for them. The East-West for the SEC has been a battle. It's like Georgia, Tennessee, Florida in the East. Those are big names. They've been really good teams. And then for the Big Ten, you get Purdue and you get Nebraska, and it's just a waste. I don't understand it. They got to go away from it. But the ACC championship, I predicted Florida State by a touchdown. They ended up winning 16-6. It was an absolute battle defensively. Not a lot of big plays. But Brock Glenn got his first start. The Tate Rodemaker game last week. He ended up going on concussion protocol and was a game time decision. Didn't end up playing. So Brock Glenn, freshman, gets his first collegiate start, and he did fine. They ended up going Wildcat and just trying to figure out how to just get points on the board, because their defense is good enough to just stop Louisville. There was no doubt in that. So they just had to figure out how to score, and they're just dudes made plays. So it ended up working out. They win 16-6, which started all the talk for the playoff. So before we get to that, though, outside of the Power Five, the conference championships that I talked about a little bit last week. Conference USA Championship, Liberty beat New Mexico State 34-20. The AAC Championship, that's the wrong score. But Liberty did beat New Mexico State. But one I do need to mention is the Mountain West. Boise State played Wyoming. Boise State ended up winning with an interim coach. They fired their coach 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they went on an absolute tear. It was awesome. And one of their players after the game was I think we know who doesn't need to be listed as a candidate and needs to be the head coach or something. It was awesome. The Boise State guys, they crowded around their coach, and they love him. So Spencer something, I don't know, Spencer something was the interim coach, and it was awesome to see. Liberty beat New Mexico State 49-35. Then Tulane beat SMU. SMU beat Tulane 26-14, which was kind of wild. So SMU ended up with 2 losses, and their losses were, Oklahoma and TCU. That was the Iron Skillet or whatever that rivalry is called. But yeah, that was a great game. Tulane was a great feel-good story this year. Their only loss is Ole Miss the whole season until then. So yeah, shout out Tulane still though. SMU going to the ACC next year. I'm excited. I'm excited for them. They're on the rise. SMU has been fun to watch. And then Troy ended up beating Appalachian State in the Sun Belt Championship 49-23. And then Miami, I picked as my team to upset Toledo, and it ended up happening. So Miami, Ohio won 23-14 over Toledo. So shout out John Young, one of my guys that plays on Miami. But yeah, they got it done there. So into the college football playoff talk. This is the important part of the podcast. So we ended up with 1 Michigan, 2 Washington, 3 Texas, 4 Alabama. This to me is completely understandable. And the reason is, I've heard Kirk Herbstreit talk about it a couple times, the average margin of victory in the playoff, not even just these first rounds, not just like the playoff overall, the average margin of victory is 19 points. So obviously the issue is the talent gap and just the skill gap and like all this means they're leaving too many good teams out, or they're just putting in these weak teams. And like I heard Stephen A. Smith say, like TCU is to blame for this because they got absolutely ran off the field last year versus Georgia. So like you don't want to put in Florida State when they have a third string quarterback. I understand, like they have every like it makes so much sense for them to be mad. They have every reason to be just absolutely aggravated, to try to sue, to riot, boycott, everything. Like, it's completely understandable. But it's just, I mean, it's tough. Like the playoff committee, they say it is the 4 best teams. But there's something that I have on here in a second that kind of goes against that. So if you're taking the 4 best teams, you can't argue that Florida State is one of those 4. Like, it's just, they're not. Like, and it's proven the last couple weeks. Like, just offensively, they won't get it done. So with Alabama late in the season beating the number 1 team in the country, it was enough to get them in. And then you have to have Texas ahead of them because of the head-to-head and whatever. But the margin of victory is completely why this happened. Like, with how the big gap between the wins and losses is like just astronomical. So they had to do something about it. But for Florida State, like, I feel so bad for those players, and it was a tough situation for the committee. But their AD had some words to say to just the committee and different stuff. So this is just a couple words that he had. The consequences of giving into a narrative of the moment are destructive, far-reaching, and permanent, not just for Florida State, but college football as a whole. The argument of whether a team is the most deserving or best is a false equivalence. It renders the season up to yesterday irrelevant and significantly damages the legitimacy of college football playoff. The 2023 Florida State Seminoles are the epitome of a total team. To eliminate them from a chance to compete for a national championship is an unwarranted injustice that shows complete disregard and disrespect for their performance and accomplishments. It is unforgivable. I completely understand why he would say that. Like, he should say that. It's outrageous. Like, it to me, as a viewer, I love how the playoff is. Like, I love that being the 4 teams. But, like, Florida State not being in is unreal. It's outrageous. Like, going 13-0 in a power conference and not winning is, like, so rare. And then they don't get the opportunity. And Mike Norvell, like, he's built this over years. Like, his first year, second year, they started out 0-4. And then I think it was last year, they ended up going like a 3-game losing streak. And everybody's like, this might not be the guy. Florida State's just going to turn back into like the Florida State of the past few years, and they're just going to be terrible. And then this year, they hit the transfer portal hard. They get everything that they need. They bring back Jared Verse, Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, all these dudes, Johnny Wilson. Like, they bring back like playmakers, and they get Keon Coleman out of the portal, and like they have this complete team, and they get screwed from competing for a national championship, which is exactly what Norvell has built. And I don't even know what you say to the guys. Like, there's nothing that you can say to the players in this moment that like makes it any better. So I hate it for them. But yeah, no. If you really want to just be crushed and have your heart broken, this was Jordan Travis's tweet after the committee made their decision. He said, "Devastated, heartbroken, and so much disbelief right now. I wish my leg broke earlier in the season so y'all could see this team is much more than the quarterback. I thought results matter. 13-0, and this roster matches up across any team in those top 4 rankings. I'm so sorry. Go Noles." Man, that one tearjerker. That's tough. What a guy. And I mean, he ended up saying, "Go win it all, brother," to Jalen Milroe, which is the team that took their spot. Like, what a guy, what character from Jordan Travis. Like, I know deep down he just wants to, like, go on Twitter, cuss out the committee, like, say all this crazy stuff, and he's being, like, he says that just shows his like, devastation of how bad he feels for his teammates, and then he goes and says that to Jalen Milroe. He's like, go win it all, brother. Like, that's just awesome. It's great character from him. But I couldn't imagine for Florida State how they feel right now. And one thing, Florida State held a college football playoff selection show watch party at Doak Campbell at their home stadium. So I would hate to see those scenes. What kind of did it for me, in like the committee's like, I guess like rule book or like what they go by, I don't really know what you call it. It says something like they take into consideration teams' injuries and that could have an effect on whether or not they make the playoff. It like says that in the like laws or rule book or whatever that they have. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, well, they're not making it. Like, it was a sad reality, but yeah, it's tough. The ACC commissioner had some words too. He said, it's unfathomable that Florida State, an undefeated Power 5 conference champion, was left out of the college football playoff. Their exclusion calls into question the selection process and whether the committee's own guidelines were followed, including the significant importance of being an undefeated Power 5 conference champion. My heart breaks for the talented FSU student athletes and coaches and their passionate and loyal fans. Florida State deserved better. College football deserved better. Yeah, I hate it. And the weirdest thing about all this, if this is a 12 team, like obviously, it still sucks that 4-5 line whenever it turns to 12 team because you either get a bye if you're a 4 or you got to play if you're a 5. So even then it's going to matter. But like the fact that they have zero chance of competing for a national championship because they're just in a bowl now is awful. But the weirdest thing, the most ironic thing about it, in the offseason, there was a chance that this was going to go to 12 teams this year. Like for this exact playoff would be the first 12 team. But the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 came together. All their commissioners, they created this like alliance, and they all voted to push the 12-team playoff to another year. So it's really on them, technically. Like, I mean, it's on them for it not being a 12-team. But Florida State did everything they could possibly do. Their quarterback gets hurt, and they still keep winning. They did everything they could do, and they still don't make it in. I was just crushed. Like, just the thinking about those players and how they're feeling right now, like, they're just helpless. Like, they can't really do anything. There's nothing they can do to get in, and, like, it's a sad reality for them. But, so, for Georgia, like, this is where it comes into question. So, Georgia, to me, if Georgia was in this playoff, they're going to win the playoff. Like, Alabama is really the only team in the country that I thought could beat them. And I think if they played again, Georgia would still be a favorite. Georgia would probably win. Like, Georgia would win the national championship this year, and there's no way around it. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. But Georgia's a little banged up right now, so maybe that could come into the conversation. But the one thing that holds Georgia back is that it says this is not a power ranking. This is a resume ranking. So, yes, they say they want to get the 4 best in, but you got to have the resume and stuff. And, like, Georgia and Ohio State, they both had a late-season loss. Like, all that matters. But if you're going to say this is not a power ranking, this is a resume ranking, and you have a 13-0 Power 5 conference champion, how do you not have them in? That's where it gets spewed, and it's like, what's really the truth here? So I don't really know. I do think if Georgia was in, they would win it, and you can't put Georgia in there, though. So that's why the 12 team is going to be absolutely electric. Like, you can't tell me that you do not want to see that 12 team playoff. Like, there is no way that you can't enjoy, like, who would it be this year for 5-12? Florida State and Liberty. Liberty at Florida State. Doak Campbell would be going crazy. And they'd probably end up getting Tate Rodemaker back and all this stuff. Like, that would be awesome. You get, like, home games at, like, Ohio State this year. You get a home game at Sanford. Like, these games would be amazing. So, I mean, like, the 12 team's just going to be so good. Like, I tried to talk myself out of it, like, right when it happened. I was like, I kind of like the 4 team and stuff, but, like, there's no turning back now. The 12 team is going to be awesome. So we'll talk about this, like, the next few weeks because it's going to be a few weeks till these games are played. But we get Michigan versus Alabama. Obviously, 2 historic teams. We get them in Pasadena, California, at the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl Stadium. This is iconic. This is the most, like, cool, hyped up matchup to me personally out of any playoff game that we've ever had. It's a rematch of the 2020 Citrus Bowl from that 2019 season, which Alabama won that game, like, pretty easily. This game is just massive, like, in every form or facet. Like, Harbaugh versus Saban. Harbaugh, his second game back from suspension. One thing that I noted that is actually insane to me, Jim Harbaugh didn't even coach 6 of their games, and they ended up being 13-0 and the 1 seed in the college football playoff. Because he missed the early ones because he bought a recruiter burger or something, some crazy NCAA stuff. And then at the end of the season, obviously he missed for the Connor Stallion stuff, and they still went 13-0. So Sharon Moore, what a legend. Like, it's crazy. But Michigan really hasn't seen a Jalen Milroe, which a lot of teams haven't because Jalen Milroe is special. But they really don't have. I'm trying to think who on their schedule would have been. Well, I guess they did. They played Nebraska, so okay. Outside of Nebraska, they didn't necessarily see a Jalen Milroe, like a elusive running quarterback that can also sling it. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I know they're both fired up going into it, like just the coaches. But I'm sure y'all saw the video of Michigan when it was announced that they were playing Alabama instead of Florida State. That video should not have been put out because that's a bad reaction. If y'all haven't seen it, go look that up. They just showed straight devastation. Like they were hurt. But Alabama, they've played this 3 times. Alabama versus Michigan. Alabama leads the all-time series 2-1. There's 25 national championships combined between this. 2 historic teams. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But on the other side, we have Texas versus Washington. This is a rematch of last season, actually. They played in a bowl game. They played in the Alamo Bowl from last year, where Washington won 27-20. Nearly the same roster. I mean, Texas added A.D. Mitchell. I mean, I'm trying to think of just like the huge changes. But yeah, this game's going to deliver. Like, whatever the over-under is, I'll take the over. I'm hoping that's how it'll be. It'll just be points, and one defense will end up making a play late. I just hope this game is amazing. But, yeah, Sarkisian actually has a little history with Washington. That's where he got his first head coaching job. So, little love there for Sark. But, yeah, Kalen DeBoer versus Sarkisian is like, it feels like the college football future matchup. Like, this is, I mean, Sark, like, he's lost some games as a head coach, but, like, from being at Alabama and then now to Texas, like, he don't lose too many games. And then Kalen DeBoer literally just doesn't lose games. Like, the whole time he's been a head coach, he just doesn't lose. But this game's going to be awesome. Like, these 2 teams have played 5 times. Texas leads 3-2. And this one, it's not as historic because Alabama-Michigan is unreal historic, but 6 combined national championships between these 2. So, out of the 4 teams, Florida State's more historic and more notable than Washington is. But, I mean, we got some names for this. So, it's an awesome playoff. Just I can't wait for these games coming up. Outside of those, the other NY6 Bowl games, we have Ohio State versus Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, which, if you didn't see it, Reese Davis and the guys on ESPN, they all talked to all the coaches and stuff after the selection show and all that. And they had Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach of Missouri, on. And he was just in the middle of the interview. He was like, "Hold on, guys, I got to take this call. Connor Stallions is calling." So that was amazing. But yeah, I can't wait for that. That game's gonna be awesome. Kyle McCord already entered the transfer portal, so I'm just assuming he's not gonna play, which may be good or bad. I don't know. But Ole Miss versus Penn State in the Peach Bowl. I know Lane Kiffin was fired up. He was talking about this on Twitter. He's excited for this one. Florida State versus Georgia in the Orange Bowl. This game is going to be really bad in two different ways. Either everybody's going to play and Georgia's going to beat the crap out of them out of like anger, or Georgia and Florida State both don't care, fans ain't going to go, nobody's going to play, and it's just going to be a stupid, pointless game. But I think if Florida State wins this, they got to hang a national championship banner. Like, yeah, they made a whole lot of fun of UCF for doing that, but I mean, you might as well. Like, you went 14-0. Like, you might as well just hang a banner. So that game's going to be pretty cool. And then Oregon versus Liberty. Bo Nix announced he is playing. I think Oregon might just win by 1,000 in this game. So we get that in the Fiesta Bowl. So Kentucky's matchup is versus Clemson. And honestly, the funniest part about all this, Louisville, with us beating them and then them losing and looking terrible in the ACC championship, no bowl game wanted them. Like, I think it was the Gator Bowl wanted us. But then they were going to take like Louisville, but we're not playing Louisville again. So then Louisville ended up with a worse bowl game than us, going 10-2 in the regular season. We went 7-5 in the regular season. Like, they ended up with a worse bowl. That's just hilarious to me. Like, Louisville is just a joke, and like no bowl game wanted them. That's just hilarious. But so yeah, we'll play Clemson in Jacksonville. I think most of their players are going to be playing, so that's going to be a tough game. I'm excited for it because it's just a name, but yeah, like it's a tough draw. It's a big name, so I like it, but I know for us, Ray Davis is not playing. Devin Leary said he will. I'm sure there will be others that will opt out. Andrew Phillips, I think, opted out. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Well, Dabo Swinney, I love Dabo, but gonna have to be Dabo hate month because with us playing them, we play them the 29th. I'm pretty sure it is. So that'll be a big one. Then we actually have college football this week. So this is because it's such an amazing matchup. It's always set aside on its own weekend. So this Saturday, Army versus Navy. The uniforms are amazing. This is one of the best uniform collabs from like both teams since like 2017 or 16. These uniforms are absolutely beautiful. Like I love these uniforms so much. Navy leads this all-time series 62-54, but Army won last year, and Army's a 2.5-point favorite. So I'm taking Army again, and it ain't gonna be high scoring. It ain't gonna be super high scoring, but Army's gonna win 20-10. I think they play this in Philly. I think that could be completely off. I'm pretty sure this is played in Philly at the Bank. So for college basketball, little wrap up. I need to still figure out a little format for me to be able to talk about college basketball. But little summary. Arizona, the AP poll came out today. So yesterday when y'all were watching this, Arizona's ranked number 1 for the first time since 2014. Real quick, yes, I'm not going to talk about it too long because I just, yes, I'm a Kentucky fan. It's obvious. Right there. Like, yes, we lost to UNC Wilmington. But we were without DJ Wagner. Like, we shouldn't lose that game, no. But, I don't really care. We'll be fine. I think it was just, a little freshman thing coming off a big win versus Miami. We just beat the crap out of them. And then, I don't know. I'm not worried. I had a bunch of, Louisville fans text me, Duke fans text me, some Tennessee fans, some UNC fans, all trying to pick at me and stuff. And I was like, I really don't care. Yeah, it sucks to, lose that game. We shouldn't lose those, ever. But this is, all freshmen. We were without our starting point guard for the first time this year. We had our big man back for the first time. So, it's just a whole lot of, stuff that, it wouldn't be smooth for any system. So, I'm fine. We're chilling with that one. I don't really care about that. But, yeah, it's a bad loss. We remained 16 in the poll, so I'm not tripping. College basketball, overall, in these different, message boards and stuff that I was in, nobody's freaking out about the Kentucky team. I don't see, all these, rivals of us, want to find a reason to pick at us, but, don't really care. So, yeah, that's that. UConn at Kansas ended up being electric. That was last Friday. I talked about that game for a little over a week. That was an amazing game. Caravan ended up fouling out late, But Kansas got it done 69-65. The KJ Adams thing, his mother passed away a few days before that game, and he played as hard as you can possibly play. He played so well, and so he ended up getting like a game ball or something after the game. He was flying out the next morning to go to a funeral. Nothing but love for that dude. Like, a whole lot of respect to be able to remain focused and play basketball at that point. It's just impressive. So shout out to KJ Adams, and shout out to just Bill Self and all of them, just for supporting him. And I know it's a cliche, but like, he's got all his brothers there, and I know they're probably supporting him and loving on him. So prayers for KJ Adams' family and stuff. I hate to see that, especially for an athlete with him being away from home. So yeah, just definitely prayers for his family. And this week has some great games. So some of the games lined up for this week. We have Marquette versus Texas. That's just a shocking smart game. That game is going to be amazing. Then we have North Carolina, UConn. Love that one. Illinois, Tennessee. Missouri, Kansas, where Kansas beat the brakes off of Missouri last year when they were actually good. Cincinnati, Xavier. That is one of the most underrated rivalries in sports. Like, that game, they hate each other. I can't wait for that one. Alabama, Purdue. Florida Atlantic, Illinois. Wisconsin, Arizona. BYU, Utah. South Carolina, Clemson. I don't really care too much about that one. But some great basketball this week. This season we have been absolutely blessed with games. So I'm excited for those going forward. But I think that'll just about do it. Not a lot of NFL talk this week. I just don't care as much about the NFL as college. I've mentioned that 1,000 times. So but the NFL slate yesterday was terrible. I watched some games, and the Eagles 49ers game, that was the game I was looking forward to, and then it ended just in the 49ers beating the brakes off of the Eagles. And then the NBA in-season tournament, I'll probably just have a separate video. That's just kind of its own thing. I'll probably talk about that a little bit separate. But the transfer portal opened up today, and there's some big names in. Walter Nolan from Knoxville, he'll probably end up at Tennessee. That's just my thought. Just go back home. He was the number one player in the class of 22, D lineman, so that's a massive name. And then Kyle McCord entered. Dylan Gabriel, he entered the portal. So big names, and it's only going to be more. Brock Vandegrift, he entered the portal. That's a name to watch out for if you're a Kentucky fan. He was a 5-star out of high school. He was the backup at Georgia the past 2 or 3 years. That's a name that I want. For Kentucky, for me personally, I want Will Howard or Brock Vandegrift. And, that's kind of my preference. But we're going to have to get a running back. We're going to have to get a couple of receivers. And we can probably call it a day from there. But, thank you all for tuning in to yet again another podcast. Let me know y'all's thoughts on the conference championship week. This was one of the most electric and pivotal championship weeks that I can remember in a while. So it definitely delivered. It was amazing. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the week. Be safe and peace.